This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk a little bit more about a Coinbase Bitcoin hack and what could happen in this situation. Yesterday we talked about the possibility of a lot of paper Bitcoin being at Coinbase, and I concluded that I don't believe this is a problem at the present. The really big problem is not that Coinbase isn't holding enough Bitcoin. The really big problem is that Coinbase is holding way too much Bitcoin. This is a really neat diagram that Sani over at timechainindex.com did. We can see how many Bitcoin Coinbase is currently holding. Looks like it's as of September 2nd. Again, a lot of this is guesswork, but I imagine that these approximations are pretty correct. Coinbase holding 2,275,123 Bitcoin. And they're holding it for various different groups. They're holding it for customers at Coinbase, for example, for centralized exchanges. We can see up here, if you're holding your Bitcoin on Revolut or Bitvavo, they're also being held at Coinbase custody. We have Coinbase holding Bitcoin for all the ETFs, including the Grayscale, the ARK, and the BlackRock Bitcoin Spot ETFs. We also have Coinbase holding it for itself for Coinbase Prime Custody, also for various funds for companies like MicroStrategy, Tesla, SpaceX, and also for Bitcoin miners. So this is quite a holding. This is clearly a giant honeypot like nothing that has ever existed before. Bitcoin and the Bitcoin that's being held at Coinbase is the most important asset of the next 1,000 years. And now over 10% of the total maximum supply of Bitcoin, of that 21 million, is sitting at Coinbase. So what could go wrong? There are many different possibilities. Number one, you could of course have a rug pull by insiders. Brian Armstrong and his buddies take all the Bitcoin for themselves and disappear. You could also have a disguised rug pull by insiders where Coinbase pretends that it was hacked by outsiders while instead it's just a rug pull by insiders. You could also have a real rug pull by China or Russia or North Korea, where international hackers find a way to steal all of Coinbase's Bitcoin. This would be rational behavior since Coinbase's Bitcoin holdings really amount to a future U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, which leads us to number 4, disguised rug pull by the U.S. government. Coinbase pretends that it was hacked, while in fact it's just the U.S. government or intelligence agencies taking all of the Bitcoin. This would be similar to what happened in Executive Order 6102 in 1933 when President Franklin Roosevelt stole all Americans' gold. He basically paid them a below market price, took all their gold, and put it into Fort Knox, famously in Executive Order 6102, and the U.S. Supreme Court and Congress supported him and did nothing about it. We could also have a financial crisis rug pull of Coinbase's Bitcoin by the U.S. government. U.S. Treasury and Fed announced that Coinbase's Bitcoin is being temporarily held by them to somehow help to stabilize the financial system and to ward off a crisis, maybe to protect the U.S. dollar or something like this. Or the U.S. Treasury and the Fed could announce that Coinbase has just gone insolvent, whether it really has or not, and that they will need a bailout that involves the U.S. government in exchange for the bailout taking all of Coinbase's Bitcoin. Number 6, Coinbase does something really stupid and loses all of their private keys to the Bitcoin that they're holding. This would be bad news only for those holding their Bitcoin at Coinbase. For the rest of us, it would constitute a pro rata donation to the Bitcoin network, and those of us who are still holding our own private keys and still able to move our Bitcoin. You'd get a similar result if the U.S. government, foreign government, insider, or other thieves stole the Bitcoin from Coinbase and then lost the keys. This would also constitute essentially a pro rata donation to the rest of us. If Coinbase's Bitcoin were ever to be lost or stolen, it would be really bad news for holders of MicroStrategy, for holders of the BlackRock Bitcoin Spot ETF, IBIT, and all the other spot Bitcoin ETFs that use Coinbase custody to hold their Bitcoin. We can see, for example, it appears that BlackRock holds all of their Bitcoin backing IBIT at Coinbase. 357,043 Bitcoin here. If we take a look at Bitcoin treasuries, they show approximately the same number for IBIT, 357,277. So this has been updated. As for MicroStrategy, it looks like they are diversifying across multiple custodians. Sani has them holding here 79,296 Bitcoin at Coinbase custody, whereas their total amount that they hold is approximately 244,800. And this lines up exactly with the 10K from MicroStrategy, which says we hold substantially all of our Bitcoin in custody accounts at US-based institutional grade custodians, like Coinbase, for example, that have demonstrated records of regulatory compliance and information security. As a result, the primary counterparty risk we are exposed to with respect to our Bitcoin is performance obligations under the various custody arrangements into which we have entered. And the important part here, we custody our Bitcoin across multiple custodians to diversify our potential risk exposure to any one custodian. So it doesn't look like MicroStrategy is holding all of their Bitcoin at Coinbase. And again, this is not to FUD BlackRock or FUD MicroStrategy, but just to point out some of the risks involved. And this is really what publicly traded companies need to do. There's no way that the lawyers and accountants at MicroStrategy would let Michael Saylor hold MicroStrategy's Bitcoin in multi-sig or in a hardware wallet under his bed, even if he wanted to. You have to use these regulated institutional custodians. So this is something that they don't really have a choice when it comes to. Now, what's the best way to ward off the risks that come with Coinbase's concentrated holdings of Bitcoin? Number one, the most important one, which you can actually do, if you're holding any Bitcoin at Coinbase, withdraw it immediately. You're absolutely insane to leave your Bitcoin on any exchange, especially Coinbase being such a honeypot. So withdraw it immediately and hold your private keys on a hardware wallet like the Coldcard or the Blockstream Jade. This will help to mitigate both personal risks to you and systemic risks to Bitcoin, having all the Bitcoin or over 10% of the Bitcoin sitting at Coinbase custody. Number two, encourage your local politician, encourage U.S. regulators to allow all U.S. banks to custody Bitcoin. This should definitely be allowed. If they can custody shares of stock, they should be able to custody, or they custody bonds or shares of stock, they should be able to custody Bitcoin. And if IBIT and MicroStrategy had access to more custodians than Coinbase and Fidelity, I'm sure they would spread their Bitcoin holdings across more custodians. That would mitigate both individual risk and systemic risk. I'd encourage you to follow Sani over at timechainindex.com on Twitter. I'll put a link in the description notes below. And then if you follow his timechainindex.com link, it takes you here, which is pretty cool. And you can see his reconstruction of who he thinks is holding which Bitcoin and the amounts and the associated Bitcoin addresses as well. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Also be sure to leave a tip, super thanks if you want to, and also to click the join button if you'd like to get access to some channel emojis and an extra video every month. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.